Cold open question of the day, Wes Goldberg. It's really a list. I felt, you and Brendan are trading lists here the other day, and I felt like I needed to do a list. Okay? So we're going to hit you with a list. And it's a very depressing list. I'm going to rank these embarrassing losses that we just had. People that don't know, maybe tuning in for the first time, I have primarily covered the Cavs in my career. You have, in addition to the Warriors, primarily covered the Heat. Brendan, the Phoenix Suns. All of the teams that we most think about, watch, are in our markets, just had tough losses in their game 3s. Or game 4s, excuse me. Here's the rankings of how bad these losses are. The Heat is the least embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
The Suns are the second least embarrassing. The Cavs are the most embarrassing.
I understand why you would say that because of how close you are to the Cavaliers' experience. But can it really be that embarrassing if nobody's watching? Where
it's really
the Suns flame out is so loud in that game 3, and just the response to it was everything on the line for them. I mean, and all the talent that they have, it should be the more embarrassing one, and that has nothing to do with how good the Timberwolves are, because they're good and they deserve to win. But the Phoenix Suns, you should be better than this.
Should that have been one, if only because Anthony Edwards hit them with a very thrusting, repeated DX chop?
Anthony Edwards is embarrassing them. Anthony Edwards is taking the Phoenix Suns' head and dunking it in the toilet and giving it a swirly. That's what Anthony Edwards is doing in this series.
I'm trying to finish a TikTok about this, about that. Joel Embiid is the better DX chopper, but I respect the effort, Anthony Edwards. We respect people trying to expand their repertoires. Is what I'll say. All right, coming up on today's show, Game 4 is all over the league. Lots of teams on the brink. Lots of 3-1 series. And the NBA has a big new TV deal starting to take shape. That's coming up today on the Just Basketball Show. Hey there, welcome into the Just Basketball Show for Monday, April 29th. I'm Chris Manning. That is my guy, Wes Goldberg. We are here on this Monday, and we're here 3 times a week. If you don't know, we're covering all things hoops, NBA, WNBA, college, draft, anything. But right now, NBA playoffs, first and foremost, 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Check us out on YouTube, subscribe, rate, review, and our podcast app platform of choice. You can find us on Instagram, X, TikTok, all that and more. And want to tell you about our friends at Thrive Fantasy. Thrive Fantasy is a player prop DFS platform where you can pick more or less on your favorite players across multiple sports, including the NBA and the NFL. Sign in today with code JustBasketball, and Thrive will match your first deposit up to $250. Wes, let's start with Clippers-Mavs Game 4, an absolute thriller. Maybe the best game we've seen in the playoffs so far is where my head went. Dallas comes back from as many as 31 down. Kyrie Irving is absolutely incredible in this game, and then Paul George and James Harden close down the stretch to get the Clippers over the hump, even the series up at 2-2. I want to hit you with a take off the top to kind of think about the series. Kawhi doesn't play in this game. Does not sound like he's going to come back the rest of the series. In some ways, I wonder if this makes it easier for the Clippers right now. I understand how blasphemous that sounds, but when you have someone of Kawhi's pedigree and stature and what he is, and he clearly was not right when he was playing, and we don't know if he was going to get there. It's almost easier for everyone else to function because they don't have to play kind of a give and take with Kawhi and try to guess what he can give them on a given possession. This is kind of a back to a game one thing with the Clippers where Paul George and James know exactly what they're going to do. They get to lead everything. And yes, maybe Dallas came out a little bit flat here until Kyrie came back late, but the Clippers just functioned super cleanly without Kawhi. And I think it's in part, not that they're better without Kawhi, but it's that when Kawhi is hurt and you have to kind of get that give and take in this environment, it's almost easier to get around that when you don't have to kind of think about it.
I had the same exact take coming out of this game. Same thought. I agree 100% with you. Kawhi was not right in game 2 when he played. He wasn't moving the same. He had no strength. He had no rhythm. And this team's ceiling is with a healthy Kawhi Leonard. Nobody's doubting that. But to win this series, you just can't afford to try to be working him in there and wasting possessions, right? We saw how important every possession was at the end of this game. You can't afford to waste possessions and be like, does Kawhi have a post-up game today? Because we don't know, depending on how that right knee is feeling. And so you have that. And then one of my big takeaways, even zooming out kind of even more bigger picture, this year, one of the things I'm starting to realize more than ever is how important a pecking order is on an NBA roster and within sort of the ecosystem of a basketball game and a basketball team. And when your number one guy, Kawhi Leonard, is limited, then it takes away from what Paul George and James Harden are able to do, because they have to share the scraps, right? Like they have to share pieces of the cake with Kawhi Leonard, who isn't necessarily at a point where he's able to be the Kawhi Leonard that they need him to be. So when he's out, it makes that pecking order so much cleaner. It's James Harden's going to be running pick and roll. Paul George is going to be working off of all of that and doing Paul George things. And it just worked. And then this game was so exciting because these were the stars at work, right? We've had games in these playoffs where it's like, oh, that's cool that Terrence Mann or like whatever role player just scored 20 points. Like that's interesting for a different way. But when it comes down to it, we want to see the stars performing at their best in the playoffs. And you get 33 points from Paul George, 33 points from James Harden. They're all going shot for shot with Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic in that fourth quarter. Kyrie finishes with 40 points, and he gets bonus points for some style points just for some of the shots he made. Yeah,
we should have a Kyrie conversation during this. Like the Clippers deserve to be finisher, but we need to talk about Kyrie because, by God, what a guy that guy is in this setting.
A triple double for Luka, 29, 10, and 10. I mean, these were just the stars going at it, and it was so compelling to watch basically this game of horse unfold in the fourth quarter, where it was just like, okay, Paul George hitting falling away corner three-pointers, Kyrie Irving making impossible layups and finishes at the basket, Luka hitting his step backs, James Harden going like kind of doing the whole foul baiting thing, and then Kyrie Irving basically telling him in the fourth quarter, hey, can we stop with that and just play basketball, and making fun of him for a flop. And then James Harden was like, all right, bet, I can do that, and stopped doing the foul baiting thing and just got to the rim, and it was hitting those crazy high arcing floaters and all this stuff. It was that's what you want to tune in for. That's why you watch. That's why you sit on your couch from 1 o'clock in the afternoon to the rest of the night. Is there's a chance that something like that can just sort of unspoon right in front of you.
I want to give James Harden some credit, his flowers, so to speak, here, because we've seen play of Harden implode over and over and over again, and like he might do that into Game 7 of the series. We saw him be great for Philly last year, and then not be able to do it when they really absolutely needed them to again. But what he did in this game, and his ability at times with this Clippers team this year, of when they need him to tap back into not full Houston Harden, but like a version of that. Mm-hmm. It's impressive that he, considering he's older, considering like how off he's not nearly at his peak, I think, of what he was physically. He's not even doesn't feel quite as burly as he used to fully to me. Like he doesn't quite feel as thick. The fact that he can turn back to that and was just composed in these moments against Dallas, not phased, just operating smoothly. It's a reminder of how talented the guy is and why him being kind of pushed into a different phase via getting to the Clippers was maybe good for him, but it's also good for them because he can tap into this. But he deserves credit, I think. Like Paul George hit maybe the shot I'll be thinking about, which I think was the ultimate go-ahead three from the corner, and George was the best two-way player on the floor in this game. He had 33, 8, 6, was 7 to 10 from 3. He was just great as a marksman in this game. But the ball handling of Harden, his ability inside the paint, doing some quick math, he was 8 of 12 on shots inside the arc and went to the free throw line 5 times. That work from Harden makes the rest of the Clippers stuff possible. It makes the looks they got from 3 open in a lot of because they needed that rim pressure. He was great. He was just awesome.
And a high degree of difficulty on a lot of those James Harden shots. Like you're mentioning the 2-point numbers too. This is not, to your point, the big, burly, super fast first step James Harden, who was finding himself either shooting step backs from beyond the arc or basically at the rim and just totally figured out the math part of basketball and used it to his advantage. This is not that James Harden. He does not have that first step. He doesn't have that level of strength anymore where he's getting those shots at the rim. Instead, it's a little less mathematically leading and a little bit more artistry. Again, going to those floaters. I mean, some of those floaters are from like 8-9 feet away. I mean, he's like a step in front of the free throw line when he's lifting into that shot. Like that is a really hard shot, and he hit like 3 or 4 of them in this game.
And they have Dallas's centers in hell because what is happened late in this game is Dallas's centers are saying, like Zubac in particular to close this game, is in the dunker spot, and no matter who's on the floor, they're deciding oftentimes to say we cannot just give up the free lob, like. So we're gonna give James Harden a wide open, like 9 feet, and like maybe with a wing on him, but like a decent floater. Like in a playoff setting, the shots Harden's getting are like good shots. Like you can live with those as an offensive process. Like it's just the reality of the summer. But like their option if they help on Harden now is you're giving him a chance to pass, which he's gonna make the right pass in the situations 8 out of 10 times, 9 out of 10 times, or Zubac is dunking out of the dunker spot. It's like what they're doing with Harden has the Dallas's defense in a tough spot. There's not like a great counter for it either, unless like they get forced some turnovers or do some try to trap or something. I don't really know, but it's tough.
The counter is, I mean, first of all, real quick, in 4 games this series, James Harden shooting 54% overall, 50% from 3, 91% from the free throw line with 7 assists to go along with his 26 point per game average. So he's awesome. How long do we keep this up? Is my question with James Harden.
That's the big question.
You know, and that's always the question with Harden, but I think even more so as a 34-year-old. Like, there's a reason we don't see this James Harden all the time. It's probably at 34, he's not capable of doing it all the time. And, you know, the series is split 2-2. The Clippers got to win 2 more games. We don't know if Kawhi is going to be able to make it back to the series. We already mentioned that and the limitations that he's dealing with. Paul George has been very good all series long. James Harden has been very good all season long. But the Mavericks have been there with them step for step, and you kind of need this version of James Harden to win this series. And as we've seen probably too many times in the past, you don't get this version from James Harden when you need it the most, usually. Now, I think I've ended up somehow becoming a little bit more of a Harden apologist in these last few years. I don't know exactly how that happened, Chris, but it just sort of is part of my existence now. I do appreciate very much the nuances of his game. You mentioned the passing. I think he's probably one of the more underrated passers of this generation just because of the scoring and the foul baiting kind of is where the conversation starts with James Harden and oftentimes ends in terms of like your taste in a basketball player. You don't really – it's hard to kind of get past that part of it if it's something that just is really sort of turns you off of a basketball player. But he's an amazing passer. He's an amazing playmaker, an amazing setup man, an amazing innings eater. Like he's just a great floor raiser for an offense, even still at this stage in his career. But they're going to need like this version of James Harden to win this series, and we'll see if that's the case. I mean, that's sort of the biggest question.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, like Luka comes into this game with knee soreness, but if you're thinking about like who might have the legs to extend this to 7 games and not falter, maybe you bet on the 25-year-old, but not the 34-year-old who has a history of faltering. Like, yeah. I understand how simple that sounds, but maybe that's where your head goes. That's where my head certainly goes when you were talking. Let's talk about Kyrie for a second, though, because we've given Luka a ton of flowers. You made a great case for him for MVP. People can find a video on our YouTube channel. This is why you get Kyrie Irving. I do not want to discount the Kyrie stuff of the last several years that makes him hard to have in your organization. That is both off the court stuff that everyone knows about, and also what it seems like he can be like as a teammate sometimes, dating back to his time in Cleveland, where it doesn't always it feels like there were times where he was hard to work with, and just it didn't work. That was in Cleveland, that was in Boston. Certainly seems like that in Brooklyn. What this guy, though, is built for is the playoffs. What Kyrie Irving is built for is the biggest moments and the biggest stages and performing at the highest level possible. He is a craftsman. This guy is an artist. This guy is one of the most skilled basketball players we are ever going to see. That is just what he is. Flaws, all that stuff aside, this guy is built for the 16 game. When you need 16 wins, Kyrie Irving is a player you want on your team. This is why Dallas gives him the money it gave him. This is why it bet on the pairing of him and Luka. This is why this guy is a beloved player among players in the league, despite all the other stuff you could say about him. And most of it is very fair and valid. this is why this guy has the reputation that he does and is someone you want when the season gets to April into May and into June. Unbelievable performance from Curry to get to 40.
Two plays that stick out to me for Kyrie. First, the one that's going to be on all the SportsCenter top 10 highlight and NBA packages. That finish that he has going up as Harden, Paul George, and Terrence Mann just sort of blossom all around him as trees, and there's just no way to get off a shot. He starts falling down with his right hand, pulls the ball back down as he's falling, and flips it around those three guys, and somehow gets that shot to drop. And you mentioned how he's so widely respected across the league. The bench reaction from the Dallas Mavericks when he hit that shot, everybody, like, just at the same time, mind being blown, all of them, that emoji at the same exact time. That speaks to the level of respect, like, 'cause they notice, and that's why, you know, they respect him so much, is because nobody else is making those shots. The other one that stuck out to me is Paul George had the Luka Doncic assignment late in this game, for most of this game, and late in this game. He tries to get he's on the left side of the floor, and Kyrie's kind of to his right, probably, I don't know, 6 feet away. And this is the scary thing about the Dallas Mavericks, by the way. And I love how it's a very simple construction to the offense, but it's very dangerous. Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic are almost always one pass away from the other person. They don't screen for each other a lot. There's not a huge amount of two-man game stuff, although they do that sometimes. But they're always a pass away. There's never another guy in between them. And what makes that, and that's puts so much stress on a defense, because you can't shade off of one to help on the other. And so when Kyrie and Luka Doncic have the ball up high, and you've got PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr. parked in those corners, it's based on those guys to come all the way up, the guys covering the corner guys to come all the way up and to guard one of them, and that obviously opens up everything that's backdoor and stuff like that. So opposing teams are going to be hesitant to do that. And so you're always going to want to basically shade off the other guard to cover the guard with the ball. And so this is what happens. Luka Doncic has Paul George right in front of him, gets to that step back. The guy guarding Kyrie shades over a little bit to help against that step back. Luka's in trouble. Paul George engulfs him on that step back. Awesome defense by Paul George. But all Luka has to do is just toss it to Kyrie Irving. That's all he has to do. The Clippers played this perfectly, but Kyrie's 6 feet away. He just tosses it to Kyrie. Kyrie drains a catch-and-shoot jumper. Boom. Entire defensive possession, which was a masterclass, blown up with a simple pitch and catch. That is terrifying if you're an opposing team. When Luka and Kyrie have it going, it's an impossible thing to stop.
It is a calculus going back to like the LeBron like Kyrie pairing. And I've pulled up right now, Wes, as we're recording this, I've pulled up on YouTube. The NBA has up the final 5:55 of this game, which good job NBA. I will be watching this and probably not sleeping after I watch it because my adrenaline's going to go up. I'm just like watching even just like the pace of this game, and like just without even seeing like great dynamic plays yet. Like the tempo that this series feels like it's going to get played at, it's tailor made for what you're getting at with Luka and Kyrie. You're telling me those guys aren't just going to function and score and be super awesome and manage all that? And maybe some of it is due to the injuries and some of what he's feeling, and if the knee's not exactly right. But is it not super telling and interesting that like we've never seen Luka defer to anyone in his career, really? Not that he fully defers to Kyrie, but is Kyrie not the first guy he's kind of been actively willing to say, you can bring up the ball, you can get us into the set, I'm going to stand over here and rest for a second. This is the first guy, maybe since like Dirk, like rookie Luka, that we've seen Luka be like, I'm cool with you taking control. We've never seen this before in Dallas, and it's good for Luka. It's good for Dallas, and it makes them like terrifying. Who do you favor the rest of the way in this series?
Yeah, it's funny how we're singing Dallas's praises here. It's the Clippers who won this game. The problem is, so I agree with you. Like we have seen Luka defer to Kyrie, and that's fine, especially when Kyrie is playing
and
like
defer
this.
Defer might be strong. It's like
no, but on a possession basis, sometimes he does, but that to me is where the Mavericks can sometimes get in trouble, and this is going to be the most difficult part of all of this. Is it looks really cool when Kyrie hits a layup through 3 defenders. It doesn't look as cool when he misses basically the same layup on the next play. And that's essentially what happened. He hits that layup. The Mavericks go up with 2 minutes and 15 seconds left. They're up 1 point. Paul George hits a step-back jumper, and then Kyrie goes right back at it. Luka completely out of the play, does not touch the ball, and Kyrie misses another layup. And I would just like to see in like the final 2 minutes, it feels like Luka needs to touch the ball on every possession. Even if, and maybe the exception is if you're breakneck pace in transition, just go ahead and get the bucket. But any half-court possession, Luka has to touch the ball, and he cannot be deferential in those moments, because at the end of the day, your best shots are going to come off of what Luka Doncic is doing and not necessarily what Kyrie Irving is doing. The magician that he may be, you don't want to rely on magic tricks in the last 2 minutes. You kind of want to rely on the efficient stuff, the stuff that you know that works, and that's more Luka's bag, even though he's obviously capable of the magic stuff too. But I just trust it's him, it's Nikola Jokic. Like, these are the guys who create on a possession-to-possession basis the best shots, the best quality shots. Kyrie Irving is great at the making the things with a high degree of difficulty. Luka's great at creating good shots, and you just need good shots at the end of these games. So that's why I thought Dallas lost this one, is because they got away from Luka a little bit too much late. And then obviously the Clippers, give credit to them, like Harden doing his thing, Paul George hitting unbelievable shots. So I think that's ended up being what happened at the end of this game. In terms of, to answer your question, who do I have in this series? I still think I have the Mavericks because
me too.
If Kawhi can't come back, it just feels like the Clippers are going to be a big part short. And if you don't get these kinds of games from James Harden and Paul George, where it just feels a little bit more repeatable for somebody like Luka to keep doing that than it does for those guys.
And even the Kyrie thing, it's like there's a bucket at the possession starts at 4:29 in this game if people go back and look at it. It's a very simple play. It's not even like a top 5 thing Kyrie did in this game, but Paul George is defending him. Paul George gets turned around and has to flip his hips all the way back the other way to get around the screen for Maxi Kleber. Zubac is now ignoring Kleber and is sliding down. Norm Powell is in deep help. James Harden's entirely helped off his guy in the corner. It's just everyone's on Kyrie. Kyrie has the patience, the footwork, and the body control to hit a off the glass pull up jumper from 10 feet over Paul George, who's 6'9", and Kyrie 6'3". It's just that's unbelievable, and he does it routinely. And if you told me I had to rank make a list of who do I trust to be dependable the rest of the way, Luka's 1, it's probably Paul George 2A, it's Kyrie 2B, and it's Harden 3 is how I would look at it. And I think I'm going to favor the team with 2B and 1, the undisputed 1 of the series with no Kawhi, versus Paul and James, just considering we know what James is. Although, I would say, the Clippers, to their credit, they have the coaching advantage. I like some of the rotation pieces to be a little bit more. I mean, I think there's another good Russ game in here somewhere that could give them something. Yeah. He didn't give them much in this game. So there's maybe more on the table for the Clippers.
This is going to go, it feels like it's going to go 7 games. I have no idea who's going to win this series.
This is the case. This is just the case to have. I am pro 5-game series most of the time. This is why we want 7-game first round series. Maybe Cavs Magic should be 5, but this should be 7.
Yeah, maybe you just maybe it's just 7 games in the Western Conference. But the other part about Kyrie, and I hate to keep pounding this, but he missed 3 shots in the final minute and a half of this game.
Yeah, it was tough.
As great as the shot making was, I think we tend to, I think the kids these days see the makes on Instagram and stuff, and that's why people are always in the comments, how Kyrie Irving's the GOAT, best player in the league, nobody's better. People say this. These are things that people say. And it's because when he makes the shot, it looks so cool. It looks so cool. And they're really hard shots to make, and nobody in the league makes shots like Kyrie does in that way, probably as often as he does. He might still be the best tough shot maker in the league, especially at the basket. But he also misses a lot of shots, man. He takes a lot of high degree of difficulty shots, and they don't always go in. And I think people would be surprised based on the highlight package of this game that if I told them he also missed his last 3 shots in the final minute and a half and probably cost the Mavericks the win here. Which seems a little harsh to just put it all on him. But people would be surprised just by that little statistic because it just doesn't feel that way when you're watching it.
That too, it would help. I think the gambit I think you can run with Kyrie is that it is great to have him as a thing you can have that can get you out of a 31-point hole. He also probably it's kind of hard to you expunge so much effort to get back from 31 that like that's a very tight like rope to walk.
I
if
just want
that's
the
how
ball
you're
in
getting
Luka's
back.
hands. In that final
Yeah.
2 minutes, Luka needs to have the ball in his hands more. That's it.
Yeah. The Jason Kidd needs to maybe just like force. That's like I feel
Yeah.
like that might be a Jason Kidd thing. Force it,
No, for
as
sure.
much-
It's just tilted a little bit more in that direction, and a lot of those late game problems get a little bit more ironed out. It might not look as cool, but you're probably just going to get efficient looks and win more basketball games that way.
Yes. All right, let's go into Knicks-76ers, which featured the Knicks going up 3-1 and Jalen Brunson, a 47-point game for him, the first Knick in Knicks franchise history to have 40 points and 40 plus points and 10 plus assists in a game. And Wes, I think there was a Knicks defensive adjustment that won his game. Tom Thibodeau out here winning games in a way. I didn't know that shout out Rick Ross. I didn't know that Tibbs had this in him, if I'm being honest with you. When I think of Tibbs, I think of a pretty solid guy who like is riding guys that clearly aren't as good, and he sticks to his guns and has a certain way of style. Maybe this is due to foul trouble more than anything else because the Knicks centers got in foul trouble. Mm-hmm. But they have Precious Achiuwa out there, the third string center, and he's not defending Embiid after he had some issues with that earlier in the series. OG Anunoby's defending Embiid. Achiuwa's defending a wing. The Knicks are flying everywhere. It is physical for Embiid. Philly looked overwhelmed and their offense just utterly grinds to a halt. And Embiid does not have a field goal in the last 12 minutes of this game. Made one free throw. That defensive adjustment, arguably, plus Jalen Brunson's night might have just won the Knicks this series.
It's certainly possible, right? And I think if Joel Embiid is fully healthy and looks like he did in the first 30 games of the season, you can't do that. You can't put OG Anunoby
but he doesn't.
on Joel Embiid.
He doesn't.
But Joel Embiid has been he's been good. First of all, he's been awesome in this series despite all the limitations. But he's been doing it with outside jumpers, with more of a finesse game a little bit. And by obviously baiting and getting to the foul line. You could now have Anunoby guard him. Anunoby's really good at not picking up fouls. He's really good at not putting his hand in the cookie jar. He got hit a couple times, but for the most part, he's really good at it. He stays solid. He's not going to lurch. He's got that crazy wingspan that allows him to actually contest some of those high arcing jumpers from Embiid. And the other part too is when Embiid does feel like he wants to try to attack the basket. If you've got Anunoby on him, Anunoby's really strong. He's not strong enough to stop Embiid, but he's at least strong enough to impede the progress a little bit and slow him down. And when you start doing that, then you get to have Precious Achiuwa or whatever center is not in foul trouble in the Knicks case slide over and provide that second body. And I thought it was really interesting and a really smart choice by Thibodeau, and we'll see if he keeps doing it depending on how Joel Embiid looks. Because I think the other thing, my big takeaway from this is as good as Embiid has looked, and he's progressively looking better and better. I mean, Game 1 Joel Embiid in this series versus Sunday afternoon Joel Embiid, night and day, man. Like, that is a scary thing. And so I'm not – I know the Knicks have the 3-1 lead here, and they're going to go ahead and win this series more likely than not. But it wouldn't shock me if this thing was extended. Because if Joel Embiid is progressing at this rate, there's no reason why Philadelphia could not win 3 straight games. Like, that is still very much in the cards. That is – in the realm of possibilities. There's a galaxy somewhere where Philadelphia does come back and wins this series, but I would still obviously pick the Knicks. They have a commanding 3-1 lead in this series, but and for other reasons that we'll get to. But yeah, I thought it was an awesome coaching decision by Tibbs. He's done a great job coaching this team all season long. He has shown a lot more sort of modern taste in his coaching this year, really leaning into he uses words like shot profile a lot now. Trying to lean into the three-point shooting and like not things we would hear from Tibbs in like Chicago days.
I do need him to say shot profile in the way he yells ice. Right, I need
reminding guys constantly like, hey, we're trying to hit the right ratio of three-pointers versus just inefficient mid-range jumpers.
Like, I need him yell the word like math on the court. Math. I can't. Neither of us have the Zach Lowe. Ice. I can't get deep enough. Ice.
But
yeah.
No, but like, so that it's a good takeaway. And also just the Knicks are just they're a bunch of MFers, man. Like in the best, most complimentary way possible. That team plays so hard, and they are so physical, especially on the glass. The rebounding thing is, I know every Sixers fan is just rolling over right now because the rebounding thing has been a sore spot for them. But 4 games into this series, the Knicks have 61 offensive rebounds and 79 second chance points, while the Sixers have 36 offensive rebounds and 40 second chance points. That's the series. That's been the series. Is just the Knicks. Every time they miss a shot, there's somebody following it up with a tip-in, it feels like. So even when the Sixers do get a stop, invariably there's always just another guy, a Dante DiVincenzo or a Josh Hart lurking to get that putback. And those things are such killers to a team, especially in a playoff series.
I think for Philly to extend this like to 7, they would need a couple things. Number one, I think they would just need one of their role guys just to have like a face melting game from on. I mean, Buddy Hield just didn't play in this game. Buddy Hield's like out of the series. Do you have to go back to him and just like I understand the defensive concerns, but the shooting is a huge thing, and like can he get hot theoretically, but he has to like actually make some shots.
Right.
Can Tobias Harris do anything for you?
So, Kelly Oubre and Tobias Harris, it wasn't the best night for those guys. Kelly Oubre, fourth quarter, just a
11
weird
to 26
3-pointer
in
crunch time.
Uh-huh.
You're like, what? Like, can
Yeah,
we please let Embiid or Maxey touch the ball? Like, why are you pulling up from 3-point range in crunch time, dude? Wasn't good for him. Tobias Harris just completely smoked a corner 3-pointer that they really needed on the next possession. Like those guys, I've liked what Oubre has provided them this year. He's probably had his best defensive season. He's definitely had moments of important scoring nights, and that's always been part of the Kelly Oubre experience. But just a rough fourth quarter for both of those guys.
They would need, I think, Maxey's had some really big games in his series. I don't think he's been super phased by what the Knicks have thrown at him defensively. He's responded to it really well. I think like if you're thinking about his playoff status, I am not concerned about what that is. He said 33, 35, 25, and 23. So it's declined a little bit as the series has gone on, but like he's capable of getting above 30. I think they would need 30-point games from him where his shot attempts go up and it whittles away from your Oubres, your Harrises, your Lowrys. And again, I think you need like
they're
Batum
roughing him
to
up.
hit some
They're
threes.
taking taking the ball out of his hands. They're roughing him up. You mentioned the declining scoring numbers. It's a big part of this, and that's the opposite of basically what happens with Jalen Brunson, who almost is fueled by getting roughed up. Right, the more physical you are with him, the stronger he gets. And I can't believe we've gone this long in the podcast and not mention that Jalen Brunson scored 47 points. And
I said that. I said.
You did already?
Yeah, I shouted out. Shout out Jalen Brunson.
So we should talk about it more. Let's dive into that. What is it? The highest scoring game in Knicks playoff history since Bernard King in 1984.
Yep.
And so now, if you're being mentioned with Bernard King, one of the all-time great scorers and one of the all-time great playoff scorers, that's pretty good company. Not that Jalen Brunson needed it. He's already won the hearts and minds of every New York Knicks fan in the world, but just an unreal performance by him. That scary moment where Joel Embiid lands on him, and it looked like he might have hurt his ankle. He comes back into the game. Again, just done a whole lot of scoring after that injury. And I think we're at the point right now, Chris, is Jalen Brunson the best player in the East right now?
Ooh. Okay, so he's
the best player left in the East playoffs.
So the competition is him, Embiid.
Yep.
Tatum.
Mm-hmm.
There's no one in Cleveland or Orlando.
Like Pascal Siakam.
The West A is just very good. Here's what I would say about Jalen Brunson. You want to talk about a team full of MFers, and we can say motherfuckers here, Wes. We're not on lockdown. We don't have FCC concerns. Our boss is telling us we can't swear. We can swear over here. Jalen Brunson is the captain of the motherfucker team. Like, this guy has an injury. He's got hand tape on. He, is not like at his best, I think, to start the series. And now he's alive. And in front of a crowd in Philly that was very partisan. to the New York Knicks. They traveled well, and it seemed to bother Embiid if you saw some of his comments after the game. You're watching Brunson score and handle everything. He's getting downhill. Like, he had a bucket in the first quarter, like 50 seconds to go, I think, where they whip him around a screen, and he's coming downhill, and he knows Embiid is coming. He knows Embiid and the 7-foot, 300-pound body is waiting for him. He's so smooth at this that he knows he often likes to slow down, use his footwork, pick a spot. Like, he's very meticulous. He understands in that moment, I got to go. I got to whip around and beat him to the spot. And he gets there and he creates leverage and he gets to the bucket. This guy is precise. He is calculated. Yep. He is everything you would want. And he also has like the ruggedness of a playoff scorer that, I mean, to like, as a comparison point to like Tatum often like doesn't go into that part of his game enough. Like it's the Celtic style, but he doesn't go get the mid-range shot. Brunson's like not like, I'm going to get to the rim. I'm going to get inside. I'm going to get the crafty, hard-nosed, tough as fuck buckets you need to win playoff games. And this game, the buckets that he's getting and the way he's scoring is just that. It's not sexy. It's just tough as shit playoff scoring. That's what he did, and that's how he got 47.
Yeah, I think what you're describing is his bag, right?
Shout out to the bag. You know,
the guy's got a bag, and the thing you're right about everything you said, and I would just add to it, his situational instincts are off the charts. He knows exactly, to your point, when I got to speed up, when I got to slow down, when I know they're gonna send help, this in this direction, so I'm gonna take a half step in the other direction just to create like another foot of space so I can get off this shot.
When he hits those like fadeaway mid rangers over Maxey, that's not like luck. That is not like a bad shot for him. That is like, I'm using my body. I'm thicker than you, but I can't back you down. That's inefficient. So I'm going to create that half a bit of space, turn around, fade, jumper, cash.
And he's working on this stuff, obviously. And, not to be old man on the lawn like the kids these days, but, a lot of basketball players these days do the one-on-one drill work, and they're working on their float game, and they're working on their step backs, and they're working on their, the side step threes and all that kind of stuff. And all that stuff's great to have, right? And Jalen Brunson certainly did that, and that's why you've seen his pull-up three-point percentages skyrocket this year compared to last year. But he's also doing the work in terms of, again, the situational stuff. When he plays basketball like a scoring point guard, but he's still a point guard. He's so aware of the surroundings. He plays a 5-on-5. He doesn't play 1-on-1. But when he does have to go to 1-on-1, he can do it. But he's not going to do it to the detriment of the team either. And so I thought it was awesome. To answer my own question, I don't think that there's any doubt that Jalen Brunson's the best player right now in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I kind of capped on that. I agree.
And so what does that mean for the Knicks? I think is a fair question to ask, because if they go ahead and win this series, then nobody's going to favor them against the Boston Celtics if the Celtics do ultimately end up closing out the Heat and they can stay healthy. But Brunson he could outplay everybody. Like in a one-on-one situation, Brunson could be the best player on the court in a Knicks-Celtics series. And I think it's fair to just wonder, I'm not going to sit here and make predictions, but I think it's fair to wonder, what does that mean for that series?
Well, let me ask you this. I just purely hypothetical. We saw the Knicks last year, their playoffs. You saw this firsthand against the Miami Heat. Their playoff end runs when they ran into a team that they couldn't, like, frankly, like outwork and out tough. Like, I'm not saying it was there's more nuance to it, but like the energy of that series was the Knicks beat the shit out of the Cavs in the first round, and Tibbs outcoached Spo. That those two things did not happen in round two, right? Like that was structurally the difference. As much as I would favor Boston, don't think like those things exist in a Knicks-Celtics matchup in that same way. Like I could absolutely see a world where Tibbs and Mazzulla are like even, and then the Knicks are just tougher, and they have the bodies to like that series could resemble a Knicks series in a way. That's the case.
I would give the coaching edge to Thibodeau.
Yeah.
And at this point, if you had to make me pick, I would go Thibodeau over Mazzulla. And yeah, they are the tough team. They embody a lot of the same things that the Heat did and have over this last era that has given the Celtics so much trouble in the Heat Celtics playoff meetings. Like the Knicks could basically just grab that baton and keep going if they end up, meeting Boston in a series. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here. I do have a list for you.
Oh, love a list. Let's go.
All right, so I mentioned Jalen Brunson maybe being the best player in the Eastern Conference playoffs right now. We're a week into the NBA playoffs. My all first week of the playoff team. Are you ready?
Yes, let's go.
Guard, Jalen Brunson.
Yep.
My other guard, Anthony Edwards.
Oh, yeah.
My two forwards, Pascal Siakam, cheating a little bit, Anthony Davis. And my center is Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, I think those are no-brainers. I think those are absolutely no-brainers. I think, is Ant the captain? I think Ant's the captain.
Even if he wasn't the captain, he would make himself the captain.
Who's the captain in the inverse of this team? Who's like the you shit the bed captain?
The all first week, the first week dud team.
Yeah.
It's a great question. It's probably Tobias Harris is the captain of that one. Not to keep counting on Tobias Harris, but
it might be every shot of Giannis when he looks when they pan to him on the sideline during Pacers Bucks, and he you can tell he's just there's got to be 90 bajillion things running through his head, and he can't do a thing about it as he's in
when Chris Middleton goes down in that game,
we should get to that game.
When the camera pans to, all right, let's just do it now. Yeah. When the camera pans to Giannis, and you could just see, oh my God, I am never gonna get a chance to play in these playoffs. We just keep getting hurt. Right, Damian Lillard late scratch for this one, so the Pacers go ahead and win that game. They take the lead in the series over the Milwaukee Bucks, and it just kept. Chris Middleton ends up coming back in the game, and he ends up playing pretty well. But it's been a tough month for the Milwaukee Bucks.
The Pacers also, I think, just deserve credit because this wasn't the template of how they won the other games in the series. This wasn't another great Siakam game. He was 6 of 14, 0-4 from 3, 13 points. This was. Tyrese Haliburton, not his biggest game, but 24-4. He has the game winner in the previous game that was electric and his playoff moment where he just destroys Patrick Beverley and manipulates that defense and gets an and one. And then in this game, he hit some big shots. He was great. But the star for me for Indiana was Miles Turner, who 3 blocks, 29 points, 7 of 9 from 3 for Turner. Great on the glass, just kind of owning the middle of the floor and everywhere he was on the floor. And, look, the Bucks deserve some credit, I think, for some resiliency in the face of the adversity going down. I thought Bobby Portis getting himself ejected was an all-time knucklehead bad move on his part. Unbelievable to not have the composure in that game, in that moment. I understand this gets heated. You can't get yourself ejected, particularly when they were calling very soft technicals early in this game. You kind of had to know that they were going to maybe keep things a little tight there. But the Indiana Pacers deserve the credit for taking it to the Bucks over and over again, handling the own adversity when the Bucks did push back, and Miles Turner in particular just was awesome in this game. And
set a record for screams in a game. Every time he did anything, he screamed afterwards. He had that great dunk on Brook Lopez, which was great.
Monster.
Pro screaming. Keep screaming, Miles. You earned it. 16 points in the second half for Miles Turner. 4 of 5 from 3-point range. He just couldn't miss. He took over. And so, he was the performance. He basically gave the Pacers what Pascal Siakam had been giving the Pacers for most of the series. Then Tyrese Haliburton had a huge third quarter to kind of help the Pacers take that, extend their lead. And then for the Bucks, they're so shorthanded at this point. No Damian Lillard, no Giannis. Chris Middleton only is able to play. Chris Middleton played 40 minutes in this game, but went 9 for 22, so it wasn't very efficient for him. It just feels like Chris Middleton can't quite get to that level where he was when the Bucks were winning championships.
Well, and
a few years ago.
How much did he give in the other game the other night, and then they lost
That's
anyway?
That's true. I mean, you're right.
He was
his Friday night performance was scintillating, but
MVP stuff.
They ended up just running a lot of stuff for Brook Lopez, and that's just a really tough spot to be in, where you're asking Brook Lopez to be a face-up mid-range jump shot guy. And that's basically your offense. It's just not a great spot to be in. So, big of a takeaway from the Pacers winning this game is the resiliency that the Bucks showed to just hang into this game. But it just doesn't feel like they've got enough horses to finish this ride. You know what I mean? And it's just the Pacers are up 3-1, and it feels like they should be.
Are they getting outpaced? Is what you're saying?
I'm not saying that.
Okay, just asking. Just a question. Just asking the tough questions.
Nobody should say that.
No, I said it. We're great. Look, I mean, I think this is fun. I think for Indiana too. We're gonna have a lot of time to think about the Bucks and what's gonna come. there's no way they can just look at this year and everything that has happened and say we lost in the first round again after trading for Damian Lillard and firing our coach and then firing another coach and all of it, and like just being like, yeah, we're cool, we're gonna run this back, we're fine in the East. This is such a moment that I believe can do good for the Indiana Pacers, and I don't think we should that should be undersold at a certain point. Like if they win this series, then even if they get dusted in the next round, and they might, absolutely could, for them to win a playoff series, to beat the Bucks, injuries aside and all of that, and to get more playoff experience, for Halliburton to go through this, for Turner to get this kind of moment in this stage, for them to get reps with Siakam in a series like this. This is such a win for this team and what they could do. Again, it doesn't necessarily guarantee future success or a future title run, but if you want to talk about a team like building like calluses and going through doing the work, this is the kind of thing that I think can be a real boost for the Pacers as a franchise. So like I love that they're getting this opportunity. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, and if you're a Pacers fan, you got to feel really good with how Tyrese Halliburton looked in this game because it was his best game of this series. And if he starts to look like he did at the beginning of this season, then the Pacers are that's a dangerous team. They're not going to win the East, but they can make some noise and they can make things difficult for whoever they meet in the next round. But look, this whole year for the
Pacers Knicks is a nice 90s throwback too. If that's where we get, that's a fun. Yeah, it's a great 90s throwback.
And cool story for the Pacers if they do go on and win this series, it would be their first playoff series win. I believe I got this from the broadcast. I haven't looked it up, so apologies if this is wrong. But it would be their first playoff series win since 2014. So 10 years. So that seems 2014 or 2012 even. I don't remember. It's been a long time. So the other part about the Pacers is the way that they stumbled at the end of the year and with the Halliburton injury and everything that happened. It felt like it was a little disappointing, but if you can cap off this season with a playoff series win, you get that experience that you were talking about, and then you sort of zoom out and take stock of what this season was. You found out that Halliburton is a capital G guy, right? Like that Halliburton he's the franchise. If you didn't know it before, you really know it now. And the way that this team played in the in-season tournament and all those things really have to leave you pretty optimistic. You went out at this trade deadline and got an ideal sparring partner with him in Pascal Siakam, a guy who could play that pace, who could be that number 2 guy as Halliburton continues to ascend sort of the NBA ranks. And you got a bunch of guys who fit in. You have real assets. You have a good coach who believes in Halliburton, who's put the system together. Defensively, you showed progress at the end of the season that you really desperately needed. And then if you get this playoff experience to go with it, there's just a lot to feel good about if you're the Pacers. And beating the Bucks again, sort of your newly created rival for some reason in a playoff series would be the icing on the cake.
We need more random rivalries, though, would be my other take. I want more like random beefs.
Yeah. More game ball stuff. More of that thing. That's all good.
Yeah, I want more teams to be annoyed with each other. Tension's cool. All right, let's speaking of a team that has nothing to feel good about, Wes, I need you to put a timer on your phone. I want 2 minutes, and we can never talk about the Cavs again. Okay?
All right, ready? All right.
Yeah, tell me when I can go. Count me off. Keeping all this is all struck. Okay, here we go. So you and Brendan had a great conversation the other day about the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Magic and what the Magic did to change their starting lineup. You guys are also overthinking this. Okay? Since game 1 of the series, the Cavs started up here and they have gone to here. Didn't matter what the Magic were doing. Even in they won game 2, the Cavs went to here. Okay? Orlando started kind of like here, and they're going up. They're on the upward swing. Every game they've gotten better and looked more comfortable and looked more physical and looked more resilient. Doesn't matter what they're doing. It's like that is factually true. On the other side, the Cavs do not. JB Bickerstaff kind of looks like he knows he's getting fired and just isn't doing a very good job, frankly, coaching this team. Isn't making any real adjustments. There's no creativity. Donovan Mitchell's giving you nothing on top of Darius Garland giving you nothing and all of this. Jared Allen's like the only one who's really kind of showing up game after game right now. Shout out to him after, he gave the quote that got memed to hell last year about the lights being too bright. Not too bright for him now, seemingly too bright for everyone else. The Cavs just don't have it. I understand the tactical stuff. I understand the stuff Orlando's doing to gum up stuff. All that stuff matters. The Cavs are just telling on themselves in how these last couple games have gone, particularly when they're up at halftime. They did the hard part, Wes, They get blown out in game 3. Didn't look like they wanted to be there at all. They did the hard part and won the first half of game 4 and maybe righted the ship. And what did they do? They had like a 30-something point turnaround and scored 10 points in the third quarter and lost by double digits and got blown out by Orlando again. The Cavs are telling on themselves, and what they're about, what that team is telling you they're about, is nothing serious. It is to me, it is as simple as that this team once again is telling you, don't take it seriously. There's nothing you should be proud of here or be interested in it as a real basketball team. That's it. I didn't need the 2 minutes.
Yeah. No, you did. You had 4 seconds to spare. Pretty good.
Let's go. Am I being too harsh though? Am I too close to this? Let me ask you that.
No. All-time bad vibes team. This Cleveland Cavaliers just doesn't matter. You can have all the talent in the world that you want. They had a good run there in January. Things felt like it was clicking. And then
notably when Evan Mobley was out and Darius Garland was out, and it was Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen. And I would like to see them do the hockey thing the hockey lineups you suggested, just as a social experiment.
Hey, why not? One more game before you get eliminated. Now's the time to do it. But not a great year for Cleveland.
Orlando's going to win that series, I think.
Yeah.
If it would take something shocking, and that I don't know if the Cavs have in them if they actually come back and win that series.
It's not going to happen.
Orlando has to win a game in Cleveland still. It's 2-2, but I would favor Orlando. The line is at 4.5 for game 5, and I don't understand it. How the Cavs are 4.5 point favorites. I don't really understand that. Like, I know
won a playoff series.
Yeah. Who does it? Let me ask you this: Who does a playoff series win this year mean more for going forward, Orlando or Indiana?
Probably Indiana, only because it feels like the Pacers could really do something next year, and they're at that level of you kind of needed to win a playoff series either now or next year to really kind of put a stamp on the proof of concept part of this, where the Magic are so young that even winning a playoff series right now, I don't know that it's materially impacting what the ceiling of this team is or what they do from an offseason perspective or whatever. We kind of know what the Magic are going to do this offseason. They're going to have a bunch of salary cap space. They're going to use it. Okay, cool.
D'Lo.
Who do they use it on? Somebody that they're going to – a shooter. D'Lo, Malik Monk, like somebody who could shoot the ball, right, and space the floor for their stars. Somebody like that. I don't know that beating the Cavaliers necessarily changes their path one way or the other. But if the Pacers are able to get a series win here, that means a lot for them and their more immediate upward trajectory.
All right, let's move on to the last bit of news. Just so people know, we're recording this before or during, we should say, Wolves Suns, so we're not going to react. There's not going to be a reaction to that game. We also just feel like, considering Brendan is our up close and personal Suns guy, we need to get his reaction to that game, which is close as we're recording this. Frank Vogel, according to a tweet from I saw from Brendan, also getting booed. So great vibes in Phoenix.
Yeah, some just bad, like for teams in the playoffs, some bad vibes for playoff teams in general. Just, when enough isn't enough, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm just seeing Jimmy Butler's getting to post memes, and you as compared to I'm getting cold weather. I had a nice spring day today in Cleveland, but I've had some snow recently and some weird weather. Brendan's got Phoenix weather, and I just go in your Instagram story, Wes, and it's a nice picture of clear water. And you're not
Miami,
Boston,
baby.
And I'm like, wow,
not Boston.
Sick.
Yeah,
sick
just
stuff.
on my morning run.
Just your morning run.
Don't have to deal with snoo. No snow.
Snoo?
Just
snoo.
I don't know what snoo is, but I don't have any of that either.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Snoo sounds bad. All right. NBA TV deal is the other bit of news we should hit on. So not fully done yet. We don't have press announcements. We don't even know who the third or perhaps fourth partner is going to be for the league yet. Some of the reporting indicates that if the league would prefer 3 partners, and it feels like it is down to TNT and Comcast, which would mean Peacock and NBC. What we do know is that Amazon's now involved. And Wes, I thought, in thinking about this, and we had debate's probably strong, but kind of a conversation in our Just Basketball group chat about this. I think something that none of us hit on, that I then read Andrew Marchand at The Athletic, and it made me think about maybe why the NBA is doing this ultimately. And I'm just going to read you what Marchand wrote. I think this crystallizes it. On top of gobs of money, which is really the real reason, but the other reason. from Marchand, quote, "My first takeaway is that Prime Video has emerged as the biggest tech company in sports rights. When this deal is completed, Prime Video will stream games for the NFL, NBA, and MLB, locally in New York with the Yankees, and hold major rights deals around the globe. If it wasn't before, it is now unquestionably must be talked about with ESPN, Fox, NBC, CBS, and TNT Sports as the major live rights players." I think, Wes, we just live in a world where Amazon is involved in this, that people have to get comfortable with that, and I think also they're giving the NBA a ton of money, and I'm also curious to see if the NBA isn't just like something they like use to sell products. I think if you're the NBA, I would hope that you can, like Amazon does the I'm drawing a blank on it, but they do a great soccer series, like they do documentaries with teams for a full year. I'm gonna look up the name because I'm gonna forget it. It's gonna bother me if I don't. But if you could get content like that for the league on this platform, I think that's a win for the NBA, on top of, again, that the fact that the check's coming in, and it seems like this is going to be the reality for a decade with this deal structure. Business continues to boom for the NBA, tons of money coming in, and they get to partner with the company I think they deliberately wanted to partner with. This seems just like they're getting what they wanted out of this ultimately, which isn't a real surprise, but I think that's, to me, the highline reaction to this news.
Yeah, so from the NBA's perspective, it makes sense. Adam Silver has not made it a secret that he wanted to connect with a streaming platform on this new media rights deal. It's where the money is going. You want to diversify stuff. Go where the new customers are. And the new customers are not on cable. The new customers aren't even on TV packages. Your new customers are online. Your new customers are on Amazon Prime. They're on Apple TV. They're on Netflix. So you gotta meet your customers where they're at, right? And so I think there's a lot of people that are upset that, oh my God, now I have to get Amazon Prime to watch these NBA games. But there's a lot of people who are like, oh my God, finally, the NBA is on Amazon Prime. I don't have to go figure out a way to watch, a channel 10 somehow on a weekend. Like, it's so. And by the way, the NBA could care less if anybody's upset by them diversifying.
They don't care
in their games. They don't care. They never will. They're going to trust. If you really care about this product, you'll figure out a way to consume this product. It's the same exact thing that the NFL did, and they had a tremendous amount of success with Thursday Night Football. They had a bunch of success with the Thanksgiving game.
Yeah.
We're just going to see it more. And so that's the NBA side of it.
And I would add,
go ahead.
People with the NBA are already, like, the NFL, I understood to some degree why, like, people got annoyed with NFL stuff being on Peacock or Amazon, because NFL games are on CBS and ABC, and, like, they're, like, you need the antennas. You don't need a cable subscription. For the NBA, you have always needed a cable subscription. It's always been an extra step you as a consumer have to take to get the NBA. This is just that in a slightly different view. It's not really that different, ultimately.
Yeah, and that's the messaging is like, hey, most people have already cut their cords anyway, so it's just a different app that you have to hit on your smart TV is all we're really talking about here. And they do have a point. I do think it's interesting that you have teams like Phoenix and Utah moving their local broadcasts to satellite television, to where all you need is a couple of metal sticks attached to the top of a television set, and you can get the games. That might ultimately be where we end up, where it's all going to be free consumption, easily attainable stuff like the NFL basically is, or it's all going to be on a streaming service, or you're going to need to purchase NBA League Pass, and maybe there is going to be no in between anymore, because it is interesting that all the reporting is not, hey, is NBC going to be involved? No. They're talking about Peacock, right? And I know it's the same company, but they're not talking about putting it on the NBC channel necessarily. They're talking about Peacock. And then it might be two different streaming services, but in today's world, what's the difference really?
And the NBA is already
consumer.
And with TNT, it's already shifting to Max in a lot of ways. Like, there's a big push on the Max.
Yeah. I get like alerts on YouTube TV all the time, but like I click the game, like, do you want to watch it on TNT or Max or the Bleacher Report thing? And I'm like, I don't know what the difference is. Just I hit a button and it's the same game that pops up. So whatever. And that's how it's going to be for most people. The other part of this is the Amazon part, which I find more interesting than the NBA part of this. To me, the NBA part of going and getting your money is not terribly interesting to me. We all knew this was going to happen. I am interested to see if TNT is able to stay part of this, or if NBC is going to be a part of this, or whatever. And it might end up being both, in addition to obviously Disney and Amazon. But the Amazon part of this to me is interesting because now they're becoming such a player in this that you're running out of reasons to not get Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
If you are a sports fan, you are running out of reasons to not get Amazon Prime if you don't have it already. If you are a big NFL fan, then you probably already got it. But if you're a little bit more of a casual fan and you're like, you know what? The NFL's already on Sundays. It's already on Monday nights. I don't necessarily need it on a Thursday night. I'll just look. I'll find the highlights the next day. No big deal. Well, now they have hockey. They have the soccer thing that you were talking about. They have a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
All or nothing
now
is a
you're
documentary series. Yeah.
And now you're gonna have the NBA as a part of this. So Amazon they did the right thing, right? Where if you're gonna go in, you almost have to go all in, and that's essentially what Amazon has done here. They are becoming they were always behind Netflix in terms of original programming, but they have now leapt all of that with their live programming, and it's not even close, right? And they're building up the inventory now, where the cool part about a streaming service is that you're not beholden to the cable channel slots, right? Like, obviously, you want to watch these games when they're live, but and they go live when they go live, but you're going to be able to just go ahead and rewatch it if you do miss it, or do all those things. And then because you don't have to because you're not beholden to cable slots, you can create original content based off of that. So the same thing that we've heard from ESPN. Why did ESPN succeed? Is because they got the licensing deals, so they were able to do SportsCenter and show their top 10 plays and actually show the plays. They were able to show highlights. They were able to re-show big parts of the game because they had the licensing of those games. Well, Amazon's going to have a very similar thing where they could build original programming off of the sports content that they already own. So we're going to see a whole lot of things being spun off of this.
I think it's too, just as a comparison point. Like, this is more of Brendan's wheelhouse at awful announcing, but as a nerd who is interested in sports media stuff, and particularly Wes, this is peel back the curtain for a second. Not even as a fan of the product, because I'm not a massive fan. I'm a very casual fan of it and will watch it randomly. I'm fascinated by what the WWE but the TKO broader group does as a company. That company fascinates me for no end. Can't exactly tell you why, but Netflix being involved with the WWE specifically for Raw, and the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson versus what Amazon is doing is such an interesting. It's the next 10 years of the case study. If that's the lanes those two companies take, it's one is more spectacle / more sports entertainment, and one is more traditional sports. On top
Netflix is more it's more event based, and what I mean by that, it's like a pop up more, right?
Yes.
They're doing this whole thing with Netflix as a joke where they're doing stuff with John Mulaney and Seinfeld and other stand ups and things like that.
And they did they did a pop up golf event thing. If I'm not mistaken, right. And obviously F1's been a big deal for them.
It's more of a festival, right? Where instead of having to buy a ticket and fly to Southern California to watch Coachella, you just got to buy Netflix. And you could just sit on your couch all day and consume this live kind of festival type of thing where it's just a relay of different events. And Amazon's not doing that. Amazon's just buying up the inventory. They're doing the licensing things. They're doing all of this stuff. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how Netflix and Amazon both operate in this streaming world. But the one thing we do know is that there's a premium on live content being added onto the streaming services that basically just used to exist on reruns of The Office, essentially. So that's where we're at.
Fun times. Peacock also. If we're gonna that's now a Peacock product. The Office.
Mm-hmm.
So you could watch Pacers, Pistons, and it's
and then Jim shows up and looks at the camera.
Yeah, you're just like
that was a crazy dunk.
What's Jim's take on beef stew is a question that I have. All right, we're going to end there. I'm Chris Manning. That is Wes Goldberg. He'll be back Wednesday with Brendan Clean. I'll be talk
about the Suns.
Yeah, we'll see. Good luck to Brendan. Who do you think has more apathy for their team? I think I might have more. I think I might be more annoyed, where Brendan is just sort of resigned to the fact that they're imploding. I think I'm a little more disappointed.
You're definitely in your feelings a lot more about this.
Because it's just it's embarrassing that I spend a lot of time thinking. I don't fan about that team anymore, really. I don't. But it's more embarrassing that I spend a lot of time thinking about them, and they just are they make it very obvious that they don't really deserve attention sometimes, At least the Suns have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker.
Can't be easy.
You have Jimmy Butler. Shout out Domino's. All right, we're going to end there. Shout out to Dylan Heiser. Shout out to Zayon, our TikTok guru. Shout out to Brendan Clean. They'll be back. Wes and Brendan on Wednesday. Brendan and I on Friday. 3 times a week here on the Just Basketball Show. Have a great rest of your week, everyone. Enjoy the hoops. Rewatch that last 5 minutes of Mavericks-Clippers if you need something to get yourself through the day. Have a great Monday.